All right, it looks like we are live on Facebook. So we want to give a moment for people to get connected. I want to welcome everyone who is tuning in now on Facebook for this live virtual open house at the Coonley Playhouse in Riverside, Illinois. My name is Eric Rogers. I'm the manager of events and communications at the Frank Lloyd Wright Building Conservancy. And we're really excited to be doing this for the first time. This is a totally new kind of event for us, and we're eager to see how it goes. We hope that everyone enjoys it. And yeah, we're allowing a minute here for people to get connected and make sure that we don't start too early, but we'll get started here shortly. While we're waiting to begin, I want to let everyone know that if you have questions during the tour, you can ask them in the comments on the Facebook video, and you will be able to get those questions hopefully answered. We'll have some time for Q&A at the end of the tour. I want to confirm here that everything is working the way that we expect, and then we'll get underway. Looks like we've got nearly 20 people already tuned in. That's fantastic. I think that's a lot more than you can get for a normal open house all at one time, right, Mike?
That's right. That's a big number for one house, especially walking in.
Yeah, and we can do that safely since we're doing it remotely. So let's go ahead and dive in. I want to invite our hosts to introduce themselves, and then we'll get the tour underway.
Okay.
Take it away, Mike.
Hi, I'm Mike McCurry, real estate broker with Compass Real Estate. I run a team, the Mike McCurry Group. And first off, I'm honored to be a representative of this property, to sell it and to promote it this way on live, and to have the foundation included in this is a high honor. So I'm very grateful. And so any questions afterwards, you feel free to reach out to me as well. This property is for sale. So you could own a piece of history and a wonderful home.
And I'm John Waters. I'm Preservation Programs Manager at the Frank Lloyd Wright Building Conservancy. And the Conservancy's mission is to facilitate the preservation and stewardship of all the remaining Frank Lloyd Wright buildings. We do that through, one of the great ways we do that is through our networking program, where we link up building stewards and other stewards who are working on particular issues on their houses, or linking up people with owners and stewards with professionals like architects and contractors and things like that. It's part of my role in overseeing our technical services program to do that. So I'm also a self-acknowledged architecture history geek in general, and Wright geek, of course, in particular. So I'm going to help Mike out with a little color commentary as we go through the house. So take it away, Mike.
Well, we are standing at Fairbank, 350 Fairbank, Riverside, and behind me is a ballpark and a park, and then the historical Boy Scout cabin.
Yeah, so the Coonley Playhouse, and I'll talk a little bit about why it's called the Playhouse in particular, is not just a great work of architecture sitting on its own. It's in a very, very historic community of Riverside, which is one of the first planned suburbs in the US. It was designed by Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux in 1869. They were the designers of Central Park and so many other important landscapes and parks throughout the country. and Riverside is a real a gem in Chicagoland, and one of the things that we have really to be proud of here. So not only is it a wonderful house we'll be looking at, but the whole area is a National Historic Landmark as well. So. And it really retains much of the original charm of the plans that Olmsted and Vaux laid out. So now we're walking to the Coonley Playhouse itself. It was commissioned of Wright in 1912 by Queen Fairy Coonley. Mrs. Coonley was a progressive advocate of new types of schooling, and the Playhouse name was something that Wright gave to the project. Mrs. Coonley never liked it because she thought what she was doing here was a very important piece of progressive work in terms of updating the way children were taught. And she thought that was a little frivolous, but we'll talk more about why Wright called it that when we go inside. The Coonleys lived nearby in an estate that they commissioned Wright to do in 1906. And in 1912, as many of you may know, Wright was at a kind of a dicey period in his career. He had left his family in Oak Park, gone to Europe with Mamah Borthwick, and was now back in the Chicago area and not a real popular person. So it was a real act of loyalty on Mrs. Coonley's part to commission this building in 1912. The forms of the building are very reminiscent of Wright's later Usonian houses, with these trellises that you see with these wonderful shadows that they're casting, as well as, very importantly, the flat roof. So this is a real transitional building between the kind of symmetrical Prairie School buildings, the houses that Wright had been working on, and what you'll see later, really about 25 years later, in the 30s, the Usonian houses. So it's a very, very important design from a historical standpoint, as well as just being wonderful space. And the ah moment as we go into this central area. So the building is basically a cruciform, and we're in the long open section of it right now. Those soffits that you see there, those wood bands that go across horizontally toward the house, are the continuation of the lower roofs on the outside that as they come in. So it's one of the ways that Wright unites the interior and the exterior of the house. So you can see there's a long main space. One of the motivating factors for Mrs. Coonley to be so interested in schools was that the Coonleys had a daughter, Elizabeth, and later in life, Elizabeth reminisced about this building. And it's interesting, she said her mother was very interested in getting away from the basic monastic form, what she saw as the monastic form of education, and going to a new type of education for a democracy. And you can just imagine that that was music to Wright's ears. But what's ironic is when Elizabeth would talk about this building, she would talk about this main space as the nave, the cross rooms as the transept, very religious-based terminology, ironically. So over to the side there where Mike's pointing was originally what was the workshop for the school, which later owners have used as more of a library space off of the living room, main living room space. Part of Mrs. Coonley's progressivism was that both girls and boys would work in the workshop, and then later on we'll go into the kitchen. And again, both girls and boys would would learn to cook, which now doesn't seem so odd to us, but this was 1912, well over 100 years ago. That was quite progressive. So in front of us, once again, as always, the hearth is the center of this building. So many domestic overlays in this school building. It was one of the reasons why it transitioned so easily to becoming a house. But this was an area where children would give plays. And that was part of the system of education where Mrs. Coonley felt that children would understand concepts. If they were studying Greek myths, they would read the Greek myths and then they would develop plays, which they would give here on this stage-like area, hence the name, the Playhouse, that Wright gave it. Those folding doors there would lead into what was originally the kitchen wing, very similar to the workshop library wing that we just looked at. We'll go in there in a minute. The former owners restored those doors and decided to leave them shut as a partition between the spaces. So now we're going to look at what are the real glory of this building, these art glass windows. These are called, for obvious reasons, the balloon and confetti windows. There are different stories about how Wright got the idea to do these. Some say he got it from a building in Paris. Some say he got it from a balloon seller passing the high windows in the Oak Park studio. His son John wrote about how he loved balloons. He would buy bunches of helium balloons and arrange them on the ceiling of the Oak Park Playhouse. So you can just imagine that this was just a great opportunity for Wright to use a motif that he really enjoyed in this children's school. And of course, they've become his very best known art glass designs. In this window here, for instance, you can see a little flag, just would be on a 4th of July parade. These have an interesting story in that in the 1960s, the bulk of these windows were sold out of the house. So you may find them in museums. The Art Institute of Chicago has a panel. The Metropolitan in New York has that main big 3-paneled triptych. But the current owners who've lived here for almost 40 years made the wonderful effort to have museum quality reproductions made of these windows to replace the ones that had been taken out. And it really gives, you can't understand the windows without the house or the house without the windows in some ways. And this is one of the things that the Conservancy has really worked to advocate for, is that these decorative elements are so important in understanding the entirety of a building that Wright designed. So we've always advocated for leaving them in, and we really thank the Smiths for their efforts to recreate these windows in this space that are so important. So now we'll head into the kitchen, which, as I say, was sort of a symmetrical space to the workshop library. Behind those cabinets are actually the original panels of the original cabinets. But the Mike's going to open one up there, you can see. And that sort of shoji screen against the wall is a pantry cupboard, which is the back of those folding doors that we looked at in the living room. But I was actually talking with Mrs. Smith this morning, and she talked about how much she loved this kitchen, how well it worked in terms of serving large groups of people. So Mike, if you want to sort of take it away from here and talk about some of these additions, that'd be great.
Absolutely. I just want to at least show that window there. And then I want you to see what the Smiths have done with some of the renovations, especially the flooring and cleaning up the space to make it more usable, or at least give a template for the next buyer, we don't know if they'll keep this kitchen the way it is or open it up, maybe put a modern kitchen. The house already satisfies and checks a lot of boxes for modern buyers that want their own things in them, their furniture, and I would imagine maybe their own kitchen as well. And so this space, we did a cork floor in and opened up this room, this addition. It's we're calling it a family room now. It could be a master bedroom if someone wants to close this off and maybe put an entrance. There's another entrance to the right there. The room to the right, if you see the door and the round window and the back door, that's a laundry room. So you can see this is a lovely space that you could modify if you want. It has a beautiful view of the backyard. You have some barrel vaulted windows there. We've added some lighting. Certainly makes the space larger, and you can redefine it however you want. I'll come back to the backyard in a moment, but I want you to see the space from the back corner of the family room, looking into the kitchen and imagine what that could be. You have a couple of entryways here. You have a sliding door on the right, and that is a plant there against the wall. And then that door right ahead goes back into the living room area. And this gives us a little bit of a view of the backyard. It is a larger lot in the neighborhood in this first subdivision of Riverside. Okay, and from here we can go through to the bathrooms. Again, you could, if you wanted to, this laundry room, you've got plumbing. You could do a master bath off of this, change it to make it your own. And speaking of baths, we're behind the fireplace right now. I'll give you an orientation of where we are again. So going back into the living room and the stage area, and to the right is the kitchen. And then here's the boys and girls bathroom behind the fireplace.
I think it's really great the way those rooms both really hold true to the original form. So you can get a sense of what they were like when this was a school, and yet they're completely modern bathrooms. But there's a number of the materials, like you see the brick on the back of the fireplace wall that recall the original form.
Mm-hmm. Little storage room or stage room. I've been calling it a stage room. And we're going to go into next the bedrooms that were added on. And just to show you again where we are, to orientate you to where we're located, the fireplace is to the right. That's the main room. And we're going to look at the second bedroom that also has an entry to the backyard. We've modernized this room by the drywall was done, lighting installed, new flooring. Really makes the space very appealing to a modern buyer. And the master bedroom, or the first bedroom, is right off of the fireplace area. It's pretty expansive here. You've got plenty of space, modern amenities like closets. It's a little echoey in here, so that means that we need your furniture to show up. We've staged this property for the modern buyer to see what it could look like, which I think is important. We put in some modern Scandinavian type furniture, which is very popular today. That's a walk-in closet. There's a good look at this room. It is very large. Really could be a sitting area and a master sleeping area. And then there's the second closet back here. I'll give you one more view of the room and we'll take a look at the backyard. So that is the garage that is in the back. I like to call it an art studio or a workshop. The Smiths used it as a workshop. They employed someone to do quite a bit of work over the years, and it has quite a bit of electric, lots of plugins for, it's got its own panel out there and so forth. It had heat at one point, so might have even had plumbing. I'm not sure. It looks like it might have.
Yeah, I think Mrs. Smith said that that it did have plumbing. The garage is really significant because it was designed by William Drummond, who was one of the best known of the graduates, if you will, of Wright's Oak Park studio, an important prairie school architect in his own right. And after the house was converted into residential in the late 19 teens, this was built. And it's the inside is quite a wonderful space with a dramatic clear story windows, lighting from above and that sort of thing. So it'd be a great potential conversion to, as Mike's saying, a studio or even a guest apartment potentially.
Mm-hmm. It is very unassuming. The Smiths have kept it that way. They didn't dress up the outside, but the inside is very, very workable. A coat of paint on the outside would probably help it. So we're going to go back to the front. Hold on to your seat. We'll take a spin back and we'll do some. And
we'll be taking questions. So feel free to chat in questions, and Eric will get them to us. Just thought I'd give a little wind up of the Coonley's time here. Mr. Coonley, they were very involved in the Christian Science Church as well. And Mr. Coonley got a position with the church in Washington, D.C. Around 1915, they moved to D.C. Unfortunately, sadly, Mr. Coonley died quite young. And Mrs. Coonley decided to stay in Washington, D.C. And in 1920 sold the Coonley estate, and as well as the Playhouse, and that's the point in time in which it became residential. So it's been a resident house for 100 years.
Well, if we're ready to answer some questions, we've definitely had a few interesting ones come up in the Facebook comments. So since Mike is set up in the main room, we'll start with a question about it. Heidi asked, and this was an interesting dialogue, Heidi asked what kind of wood is used in the main room. Now we've got a few experts who are tuning in. So Larry mentioned that he thought that it would probably be oak given the period.
Yeah, I actually specifically asked Mrs. Smith about this morning because I had a feeling that question might pop up. They did not do any lab testing on the wood, but carpenters who looked at it thought it was either cherry or walnut. According to her, their response was that with that age, it's hard to tell the difference. So it would need laboratory testing to tell. But I would have expected it to be oak also, but it's a much more closed grain. Those folding doors that we looked at that are in the kitchen are birch. So the wood is unlike most of Wright's wood at this time period, is a more closed grain like walnut or cherry or birch. So glad I asked her this morning.
Steve pointed out just recognizing the iconic nature of the design in the windows. He's actually got a set of cocktail glasses from MoMA that have that same design. So it's really gotten all around the world, which I think is so cool.
And it really is, it's by far his most recognized art glass.
And it could be yours. Nick asked a question about the kitchen, which I want to second. When you were showing some of the fixtures there, it looks like maybe there might be a soda fountain.
Yes.
Is that what we were seeing?
Yes, I believe it is a soda fountain. I don't know if it's original. I don't think it is. Maybe the Smiths have mentioned it, but it's very interesting looking. Be nice to incorporate something like that in the kitchen, especially with the youthful feel of the playhouse.
Well, I think it's such an ideal kind of thing to have in your kitchen if this is a party house, right? Brad asked, when speaking about renovations, what aspects of the house are protected and what parts of it might be able to be updated or modified?
Okay. Well, from what I'm aware, at Riverside, it has landmark status, which is a designation in Riverside. And they do have a committee, and they have approval for what changes are made to the elevation, which is seen from the street.
That's my understanding also. But it would always be good if anytime you're buying an historic house or anything like that to check in with the Historic District Commission to get a full understanding of what is covered. But my understanding is similar, that it's the elevations from the street cannot be significantly, of the original building, cannot be significantly modified.
I'll add on to that, John. The Smiths have done a great job in taking apart some of the add-ons.
They have.
The building itself was the shape of a cross, as we know, and the previous owners of the property had added on to it, making it more boxy. Maybe a sunroom or another room here and there in the front, and the Smiths have taken those off. And I'm sure got approval for doing that, and yeah, I'm sure they were applauded to bring it back closer to original from the front elevation.
And we as an organization would certainly advocate that these interior spaces that are so intact and that the Smiths have brought back so beautifully. She was describing to me how all that woodwork was painted beige when they bought the house. They restored those panels, those folding doors against the kitchen area. So we would certainly advocate that this work that they've done to restore these, the main original spaces should be respected, because it's a landmark design and a wonderful design, and not just because it's a landmark, but just because it's a thrilling space to be in.
Well, and we as the Conservancy, and John, you in particular, are always happy to talk to potential home buyers about, what it entails to purchase one of these homes, and,
by all means,
how we can help them find a way to live in it and make it work for them while respecting the integrity of the design.
Exactly, because they are not so much this house, although it transitioned very well, but Wright's houses are meant to be lived in. They were designed as homes, and we like to encourage that they remain such.
Got a couple more window questions. One is about the art glass. Obviously, a lot of it is a museum quality reproduction. Do we know how much of it is actually original?
Well, I have an idea. The Smiths haven't told me exactly, probably just to protect the windows themselves, but I have an idea that there are a few that are remaining.
And my understanding is it's 2 or 3, but all of the windows are signed by the reproduction artists, so it's clear which are replacements and which are the original.
But only if you get up close.
Exactly. So they were very careful that that those would not get confused.
And Steve asked, I think, about the windows in one of the bedrooms, maybe whether the egress windows have been upgraded to insulated glass units or IGUs.
Yes, there is windows outside of the windows to protect them. It can be removed so the art glass windows can be cleaned. I think, John, you may have found out today, even the windows in the front here are bulletproof. So they went
Actually, I think he was asking about the sliding glass doors in the bedrooms.
Oh, the sliding, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, those are egress doors. You can open those up to get to the back lot.
And do you remember if they're thermal units or not?
They are thermal units, yes.
And then another question about the preservation status and restrictions. Are there any restrictions on the landscaping of the home?
Not that I'm aware of.
I'm not aware of any either specifically. I would say though that Riverside is, the historic district is based on its planning and landscaping. So again, in terms of specifics, I think you would want to be check in with the town of Riverside, but I think it would be basically be about if you wanted to plant a whole bunch of evergreens right at your sidewalk, they wouldn't be thrilled about that kind of thing. But in terms of the specifics, I doubt there's a lot. But I also would say there's probably a lot of resources there for determining what original landscapes would be as well. So
the Olmsted Society, which my mother belongs to, takes care of a lot of the parkways and taking out the weeds and invasive plants. The Smiths, especially Ted, the owner, husband, he very specific on what he planted here, native plantings. And we had a landscape architect who has done our spring and fall cleanups the last several times, has taken care of them to their specification. So they're very interested in preserving the landscape that they set out. But the next owner can do what they want.
So we've got one more kind of technical question that's come in. It's actually a couple of questions. And before I ask it, I'll put out a call. If anyone else has a question they're dying to ask, make sure to share it now. Otherwise, I think we'll wrap up here soon. But Larry asked whether the house is built over a crawl space, and also for a little more information about the current HVAC situation.
Okay. The home is on a slab. I think, John, we would call it that, correct? It's a slab.
yeah, and it actually, unlike Wright's later buildings, it has actual footings going down, actual foundation walls going down to footings. So it's a traditional slab with foundation walls that way.
Right. And there is a utility room, a cellar off the back, kind of underneath that storage room that I pointed out between the bathrooms. That is where the boiler is housed and the water heater. And that is accessed from the outside. Very utilitarian design.
And it looks like it's hot water heating. I saw baseboards.
Yes.
Down along there.
You know, and speaking of the heating and air, I'm sitting here in the middle of the summer and not sweating. Maybe you can look closer. The building has always been very cool or warm in the winter. Just, I think the nature of the design allows that. That's my personal opinion. I have not had to turn on the AC unit. They have a couple of them, but I've not turned them on to show the property. It's very cool.
I think Mrs. Smith said getting the thermal windows up in the clear story area, those upper windows there was a huge, they definitely had some trouble keeping it warm in the winter, but doing that sort of thing. And as Mike was saying earlier, those windows, the the real windows are thermal windows up there, and that the art glass windows are safely clipped up there, so that they can be taken out and easily cleaned as well.
Great. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions roll in, just people hoping that they win the lottery so that they can buy this and enjoy it for themselves.
Me too.
Yeah, right? If we all win the lottery, we can have a bidding war. But yeah, I'll jump back in here, and we really want to thank everyone, especially Mike and John, for leading such a fantastic tour. This was, as I mentioned at the beginning, a first for us at the Conservancy. I know Mike has done a few more of these, but never with two talking heads.
Right.
So we also want to thank our audience for joining us. Sounds like my cat wants to get involved here too. I did post a link to the listing in the comments on Facebook, so I hope everyone will get a chance to check that out and see more detail about the property. It is on the market, as we discussed, and for the Conservancy, finding the right buyer for Frank Lloyd Wright design buildings is really one of the most important things that we can do to fulfill our mission and make sure that these properties are well cared for and preserved. And that's why we have Wright on the Market, a listing service on our website that I encourage everyone to check out at savewright.org. I also, in closing, I want to invite everyone who's tuning in to support our work, which you can do in a number of ways. We are a membership organization. If you go to savewright.org, you can join. We also have a special matching challenge happening this summer. If you make a donation, the gifts made up to a total of $10,000 are actually being doubled thanks to a challenge grant. So we encourage you again to go to savewright.org to learn more about who we are and what we do and how you can get involved. And I think with that, we'll close out. I'll invite any last words from Mike or John before we sign off here.
You did my job nicely there, so.
Great. Well, thank you both very much. Thanks to the, I think at peak, something like 45 or 50 people that tuned in. And we look forward to welcoming everyone at future virtual events and then hopefully in person at some point in the not too distant future. With that, we will sign off. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.